Thank you so much, Whitney, for joining us here at the Dwelling Show. I really appreciate your time. I'm certain that you're busy, so we really appreciate your time. So I'm just going to quickly run through your bio here. Whitney Nicely went from no investments or strategies at all to 19 houses and also 19 apartment units. You got about 7 chunks of land in less than 3 years, all bringing in monthly income to our bank account on autopilot. So that's awesome. She travels the United States in stages, teaching simple strategies, meeting with other successful real estate investors, and still buying houses as she's doing that. Whitney has a dog, and and also she's married to Jason Is, who is also an investor and a stepmom to Gavin, who is 12, and Harrison, 10. So since 2016, you've led and trained hundreds of real estate rockstars to grow their portfolio, collect checks, and achieve financial freedom. This is just awesome. Whitney, I think you can do a way better job than I can. Can you just tell our Dwell listeners a little bit more about yourself and what you've been up to lately?
No, I think you covered it. This is going to be a fun interview. I can already tell.
Awesome. So again, thank you. I'm just kind of curious. I'm going to jump right into it. Why real estate?
Well, if you think about it, everything that we do is kind of a new fad. I mean, how long has podcasting been around? Maybe 15 years?
Right.
That's like nothing in the history of the world, right? Even Facebook is an infant in the history of the world. But one thing that has always been around, one thing that will always be around is real estate. Everybody I know has a real estate problem. They're constantly worried about real estate. And, a lot of online entrepreneurs are really excited about, what do they call it? Like subscription boxes and things so that you're getting monthly income. Well, I cannot think of a better monthly recurring income than when people pay rent every single month, because it's natural. I don't care if robots take over McDonald's. I don't care what happens with the job market. There's people and they got to sleep somewhere with a roof over their head. They want a floor under their feet. Whether it's an apartment or a house or a trailer, they don't care. Everybody wants some real estate. They got to go somewhere at night.
Love it. I mean, that takes me back to the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and
yes,
shelter is pretty much, it's a necessity, right?
Everything falls under that. I mean, you got to heat, but if you have shelter to heat, it's a lot easier to keep the heat contained, right?
Right.
And food, and you got to have somewhere to store that. So, I mean, that's the biggest and best thing that I can tell you.
Awesome. Fine. So you chose real estate. You're like, I love the sound of real estate. I'm going to do this. And you've obviously done pretty successfully over the years now. So my kind of question is, when you decided real estate, how was that decision for you? And what were you doing pre-real estate? And how was that transition like for you? I just want to...
I am a fourth generation entrepreneur. My great grandfather started a dump truck company in 1939. And so my family, especially my mom, they've always been real estate investors. So I grew up knowing that money came in the mailbox every single month. I didn't realize bills came in the mailbox until I was in my 20s. I mean, it was pretty old to be learning that kind of lesson. But, that's how I grew up. It's just knowing that money happens every single month in the mailbox. And so when I was in my 20s, I was like, wait a second, why don't I have any money coming in? And Mom was like, well, you got to buy something first. Oh, and so that was my first, kind of epiphany moment. I mean, it seems pretty obvious, right? But it wasn't. And I started by buying land. That's how I got the land that I have. And then I grew into houses, and then more houses, and then the apartments.
Awesome. So land, that is kind of like the dark horse within the real estate class, right? The asset classes. People don't really know much about land. So let's jump right into it. Tell us about your first land deal. How did that go? How did you find it? How did you fund it?
So my very first land deal, I was hanging out at a real estate auction on a Saturday morning, and we had 90 lots that we were going to go through, and we were going alphabetical through the counties. And so we got to like the L counties, and I saw these people, and it finally, like I hadn't really been paying attention through A through J. But then in K and L, I was like, these people are paying $500. That guy just paid $1,500. That guy paid $5,000. And I was like, well, and you know, most of them were selling for right at $1,000. And I was like, well, I've got $1,000. Why don't I buy something? And so I saw somebody else. We got into the M counties, and another auctioneer was working. And I went up to him and I was like, what's the deal with this county? What's the deal? Because all these lots had the same kind of address, same road names. And he was like, buy the next one. And I was like, nah, dude, I just want to know what's up. Like, what's going on? And he was like, just bid, buy the next one. So the auctioneer started rattling and I raised my hand. And then somebody bid against me. I raised my hand again, and somebody bid against me. And I looked at my friend who was standing there, who said bid. And so I raised my hand the last time, and it sold. And I completely blacked out. It was like, you know, people talk about a 4-minute mile and how you overcome this, and then everything's different. Well, I blacked out for my first 4-minute auction, and I don't remember it. I did not know how much I paid. I did not know where it was. I really thought I'd bought something in Georgia. I mean, I was so clueless when I started. And then I found out, you know, after my nerves and my adrenaline had calmed down and we were on to like the Q or P counties. I mean, it was a while before I got my breath back. I was like, what did I buy and how much did I spend? And it turns out I bought 1.07 acres in a failed subdivision in Decatur, Tennessee. And what was cool was, so this was a subdivision and they planned on building $250,000 houses in here. And the first 20 lots that got sold when they originally sold these came with a deeded boat slip. And I bought lot number 12. So I got a deeded boat slip, underground utilities. I have my own private gate into the subdivision because I bought one of the lots on the main road instead of like in the thick of the subdivision. And I ended up paying $1,200 for that lot.
Wow,
So,
what's a deed of both? Can you explain that to our dual listeners?
What's a what?
You mentioned something a deed on both. I didn't quite get that. What was that?
Oh, a deeded boat slip?
Right. What's that?
So we have this subdivision is on the river, and we have our own private marina where you can park your boats. And the first 20 lots got a deeded slip. So they actually have their own boat slip. So they don't have to share or, you know, pay extra for that. So if I had a boat, I could park it in this slip on the river.
That's awesome. Never heard of that before. Never heard of that one before. Okay.
And then I found out later that week when we closed, because it was a cash deal, there was no financing, it was $1,200. The lady that had lost it to foreclosure had originally agreed to pay $69,000 for the same piece that I paid $1,200 for. Yeah.
Wow.
So I bought it. I still have it. I haven't seen it since December of 2012. I haven't done anything with it. I pay the taxes on it. It's like $15 a year. And I just bought it and forget about it. Buy it and forget it.
Wow.
But my second piece, I actually made money on it. So I got in a rhythm where I was going to a lot of auctions and buying a lot of raw land because, I mean, if I could put $1,200 in it, and even if it took me 10 years to get $69,000 for it, I'm not going to miss lunch in the meantime or anything, you know?
Makes sense.
So the ROI over time may not be good, but the story is going to be amazing. So I was buying up every little piece of land I could find for $1,000, $1,500. And I had another lot that came up, and it was a ½ acre of industrial land. And you talk about land being kind of forgotten about. There's 4 different classifications of land, and we need to cover that too. So the bottom layer, the bottom of the pyramid, is agricultural land. You know, where you grow crops, where you grow cattle, agricultural land just out there growing. And then we go up to residential, that's where houses are. That's where neighborhoods are. And then the third step up is commercial. And this is McDonald's, the doctor's office, apartment complexes, bigger stuff that are really out there to make money are commercial. And then the top of the totem pole is industrial land. And industrial land is where we have landfills. That's where we have factories. That's where we have heavy duty machinery. It's usually kind of on the outskirts where people don't go and buy it. It's the highest taxed. It's usually the highest price. It commands the highest rent. It's got the most demand because you just can't get industrial land like you can get agricultural land. All right. And once you go up the pyramid, the land doesn't really come back down. You're always trying to go up with your land. So I found a ½ acre piece of industrial land up at the top of the totem pole, and I bid $1,500 and I bought it. So 1,500 bucks, I got half acre, and I turned around and rented the driveway, just the driveway, not the land, just the driveway, for $250 a month. So after 6 months, I had all my money back. I got $250 a month for life.
Wow.
And now I still rent the driveway, but I also have the land rented for $500. So I get $750 a month off a $1,500 investment. And I don't know about you, I don't know about your listeners, but I've never met anybody that said they wouldn't do that deal.
Yeah, that is a fantastic deal. So I definitely, the parking lot makes absolute sense. So how do you rent a bare piece of land? So I definitely am kind of curious.
So my driveway, it splits my property from my neighbor's property, and he has a big warehouse because he's industrial land too. But to get to the back of it, instead of driving all the way through the front of his property, he just goes straight through my driveway and he's at the back of his property. So it's a convenience factor for him. His competition, okay, so my neighbor has dumpsters for the city of Knoxville. They go and pick up all the recycling. They bring it to his warehouse, they squish it down into boxes, and then haul it off to wherever recycling goes. Well, so he's got these big dumpsters out there because he hauls trash. Well, the guy that rents the land from me also has dumpsters, but he has the dumpsters that people rent when they flip a house. So you've got a bunch of trash and sheetrock and flooring and carpet. Well, when those boxes aren't on a job site getting full of trash, they got to sleep somewhere. And they can't just sleep in the front yard. They have to sleep in industrial land. So he rents sleeping space for his boxes.
Wow, that's fascinating. I really like that. That is so unique. So, Whitney, are you actually based in Tennessee?
Yes, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Knoxville, you're in Knoxville. Okay, that is just totally different. I'm learning so much today myself. So the first land, when you're still holding on to that. Second land, you're renting it. You're renting both spaces, doing pretty well. So you were kind of going to this auction, buying land. Well, what was that transition into residential like, and why did you make that transition?
Well, I thought, I've been doing pretty good with this land, but I'm ready to really step it up a notch. So I started to go into little house auctions, and I bought a house for $30,000 and started renting it for $750 a month. And I thought I was doing pretty good. But once I learned how to calculate income versus what I spent and figure out what my return on investment was, it wasn't that it was a bad deal, but it was going to take me like 115 years or something ridiculous to where I could make enough money to retire on this pattern. I mean, I was going to do better if I could just keep going buying land and renting it out instead of getting into houses. But I also knew that at the time I was getting $250 for the driveway and I was getting $750 for a house. So I definitely need more houses, but I was out of money. So I borrowed my brother's life savings and bought another house, and we were both broke. I went broke trying to get rich. I really did. I went broke trying to get rich, buying up everything I could, no plans, no strategies. And that's when I found Ron LeGrand, who teaches owner financing and lease options. And I learned from him. I got a mentor from him. And if I had not tried to figure it all out myself, if I would have just followed in the path of somebody who'd been before me, I would probably have 150 houses, and I would not have invested any of my money. I wouldn't have invested my brother's money. I wouldn't have gone broke trying to get rich, but I have to learn things the hard way sometimes.
So I mean, you have so much good content in there. You talked about having a mentor. You talked about structuring deals creatively, seller financing, lease options. So let's kind of unpack that a little bit. Okay. What do you really mean by getting broke trying to be rich? Can you just kind of break that down for our dual listeners?
I mean, I was spending my money. I was spending my paychecks. I was spending my life savings. I didn't have a retirement. I didn't have a 401k. I didn't have an IRA. I was spending every last penny I could to buy this land and then to buy that house. I mean, I was out of money. And then I wanted to buy the other house, and I really did go and tell my brother that he was going to be my partner and I was going to take his life savings too. I mean, we were both like down to eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner with mom because we couldn't afford to go out and go to bars or go on vacation or anything. I mean, I spent every penny we had to buy these two houses in this land.
So, and then you met Jim, right? And then he started teaching you. So first and foremost, before we go into what you learned with Jim, if I'm a dual listener listening to this and I'm like, I love what Whitney is saying, I want to do something similar. What do you think about mentors, and should you pay to have a mentor?
I think everybody needs a mentor. The best athletes have coaches and mentors. They have psychological mentors as much as they have, how to dribble the ball better mentors. And a lot of times it's more of a head game than an actual physical game anyway. I always have a mentor. I have a business mentor. I have a mindset mentor. I have a real estate mentor. I love having somebody that I gladly pay, that can help me get to where they are. And then I'll find somebody else that'll help me get to where they are. And there's plenty of people out there. You're going to have to pay them, but they'll get you to where you are. I mean, my clients now, because I mentor lots of new investors, and I say all the time that they happily pay me 5 figures so that I can get them to 6 figures. If I can get somebody that has a 6-figure job and I can help them add 6 figures without adding another job, they're totally in for that.
Awesome. I love it. I mean, I also have a paid mentor. So I just kind of wanted to get your opinion and just kind of wanted to share that with our Dwell listeners.
I invested $15,000 in my first mentor and I made $135,000 in the next year.
Wow.
Straight from what my mentor was able to help me with. So I didn't totally 10X it, but I got really damn close. And it's like that every time I invest in a mentor, no matter what it is that they're helping me with, I either get really close to 10Xing it or I 20X it.
Wow. And I think it's also interesting to just kind of put that out there. It's just nice that you can talk to someone that you're trying to become, and you don't want to feel like, you're taking their time and you're not giving anything back. So I think just having that, even just paying a mentor, just shows that you're committed to whatever it is you're trying to achieve, right?
It does. And again, when you go to college, you're doing the same thing. You pay a whole lot of money to somebody that is supposedly going to help you make more money.
Absolutely. You've said it so much better. Yeah, that is exactly what college is, essentially. So you learned a lot about seller financing and lease options. Briefly, can you tell us what seller financing is and what lease option is, and how did that help grow your business?
Well, seller financing, owner carryback, seller carryback, all of those terms are kind of the same. And it basically means that the house is free and clear. There's not a mortgage on it. There's no liens against it. The seller has paid it off. Like I bought my house for $30,000. It was free. Nobody owed anything against it. And in turn, the seller becomes the bank in this transaction. So I don't need to go to the bank and get any money. They are going to back this deal. They are financing the deal for me. Seller is financing, the owner is financing the deal for me. A lot of times in owner financing or seller financing, they don't pull your credit. You don't have to put any money down. You don't have to jump through 18 different hoops and prove that you're amazing. They, especially the way I teach to find them, they're glad to have you and they will hug you after you sign the contract.
So I love that you say that. So there's a lot of people with that. Sometimes we have this scarcity perception, like there isn't any deal out there. So how do you find these landlords that some of them are just tired of looking to retire and they want to just give you their house with no money down? How do you go to find this landlords?
Anybody in America can go drive around for an hour a day and find 10 empty houses. And so if you drive around for an hour a day for a week, 7 hours, that's less than you spend a day at your 9 to 5. If you do that for a week, you're going to find probably 50 or 70 empty houses in your area. And that experience will open your eyes that there's lots of opportunities out there. There's lots of deals out there. Most of the time, empty houses are free and clear. They're perfect for owner financing or seller financing. And now's a bad word, but now we're going to have to work to find these sellers, to hunt them down, to make them an offer. I mean, you have to hunt people down to offer them money. It's ridiculous. They don't just stand out on the corner and ask for it. Those guys don't have any properties, but the people that have properties, you have to hunt them down and convince them that you're a real person and that you're going to send them money and it's all going to be cool. So there is a little bit of work involved, but just by opening your eyes and realizing that that scarcity mindset has been given to you by the media and the government, and that there's plenty of opportunities, there's plenty of money, there's plenty of deals out there. I can't do them all. That's why I coach. I can't be all over the country or even in other countries. I have to teach you how to do this so that you can go out and help your sellers. You can help yourself, but you can help your sellers too.
Absolutely. So lease option, before we jump to
Oh,
that.
yes.
Yes, before we jump to that.
Okay, so I can explain this in two different ways. I'll go through both ways. So a lease option is a really fancy rental agreement. You have a lease. Everybody understands that. It's a really fancy rental agreement. And then on the last page, or sometimes on the first page, it says, oh yeah, and by the way, I'm also going to buy this house for this price sometime in the future, maybe 5 years in the future, maybe 10 years in the future. But I'm agreeing to a price today. We're agreeing on a close date 5 or 10 years down the road, and I'm going to be renting it in the meantime. And that's the most basic way I can explain a lease option. The other way, people get their panties all in a wad and they say, well, what if the house has a mortgage on it? Well, that's fine. Let's say that, Ola, you know somebody right now that has a mortgage on their house, right?
Right.
If they decided they wanted to rent that house, you wouldn't have a problem with that. Nobody would have a problem with it. It wouldn't be weird. Somebody would be making their mortgage payment for them, right?
Absolutely.
Well, at the same time, if these same people decided that they wanted to sell that house, that wouldn't be weird either.
No.
Nobody would have a problem with that. So with one piece of paper, with the same piece of paper, I'm going to be renting it and buying it all at the same time. So it's not weird.
Interesting. So from your experience, right, you got the seller financing strategy and you got the lease option, and you've done pretty much both. Which strategy do you prefer and why? I'm just curious.
I prefer owner financing. I call it owner financing just in my part of the world. Owner financing, seller financing, same thing. But when you do owner financing, your name goes on title. And so you do have more control over it. Also, if for some reason, and I've never done this, I don't encourage this, but if I stopped making payments, they would have to foreclose on me. In a lease option, if I stopped making payments, they would just evict me. My name does not go on title. I do not assume their mortgage. I can file my lease option, which basically gives me the first right of refusal. But having owner financing does give me more skin in the game.
Awesome. So can you give us an example of a seller financing deal? How did you find it? And what was that process like?
My first seller financing deal. Oh no, that's a lie. That wasn't my first one. Dang. Oh gosh, which one? Okay, so the first one, I'll tell you the first one. I send out yellow letters that say, hey, I saw your house. If you want to sell it, call me, whatever. And so I sent out a bunch of those and I did like 5 or 6 deals. And then like a year later, like 11 months, maybe 12 months later, some dude called me and he was like, hey, I got your yellow letter. And I was like, I haven't sent those out like a year. He was like, yeah, I got this house. My tenant just moved out. So if you want to come get it, now'd be a good time. And I was like, I'll be right over. And so I went and met with him. He agreed to let me buy the house for $107,000. And he was an investor who had bought the house for his daughter while she was in college in this little town. And she graduated, then he rented it to some of her friends, and he just rented it to somebody in town. But he really made his bread and butter from renting condos in Myrtle Beach. He didn't want this one random house on his books in Tennessee. And so he totally fine with owner financing. I offered to make him payments and he was good with it. He owned it free and clear. He bought it cash for his daughter 10 years ago. So everything was good. And I had, I think 10 years, like I really struggled to get 10 years out of him on that first deal. And I put a tenant buyer in the house who gave me $8,000 to move in. He bought the house from me for $121,000, and I'll be doggone if my tenant buyer didn't go get a mortgage in 15 months and cash me out. So I fought so hard for this deal for 10 years, and I only had it for less than a year and a half.
Wow.
And that's also the only, I've done 57 of these deals. That is the only one that the tenant buyer has gone to get a mortgage and actually cashed me out of the deal.
Wow. So typically you would want the tenant to get the mortgage as quickly as possible, right? So you can kind of get out of the deal, get your spread and move on to the next.
I have some houses, you know, when I started, I was getting 2 or 3 years. So if somebody got their mortgage in 15 months, that'd be awesome. But I had 10 years. I could have had 5 tenant buyers come through on this one and make $8,000 every time somebody new moved in.
Right.
But instead, I only got it once. I did get a spread of $10,000 at the end, and I made like $250 a month off of it. So I think I made $20,000 off this deal, which, you know, if I'd used my license, because I'm a broker, I'm an agent, if I'd used my license and I'd listed a $120,000 house, I would have made 6%. So I'd make like, what, $7,500?
Right.
Instead, I made over 20 grand on the exact same deal because I didn't use my license.
So before we kind of jump to the apartment, I've got so much going on. What would you say to somebody considering whether or not they should get the real estate license? They're like, I'm thinking of doing real estate full time. I want to be an investor. Should I get my license?
No, don't. You need a license to represent other people buying and selling houses. There is not a license to be a professional house buyer. There's not a certification. There's nothing. Anybody can go buy any house that they want to. And getting a real estate license does not prepare you to become an investor. It prepares you to pass the exam to get your license.
Interesting. So let's jump to the apartment building. So you were doing land, doing pretty well, renting it, you know, mastering the seller financing lease option side of the house. Then now you're going big. This is apartments. Different ball game, right? Different parameters, different numbers that you have to look at. Why make that jump, and how's that been for you?
Well, this was a whole new stage in my life also, because when I started buying land, when I started buying houses, my boyfriend told me that I would never be successful, that nobody would work with me, that I was wasting my time, I'd wasted my money on this mentor, and that I should give it up and just keep my job and forget about these dreams. So I went through and I did 6 deals before he was like, I think you might be onto something. I was on my 12th deal. I'd already made like over $100,000, not quite to the 135 yet, but over 100 grand. And we were in a Krispy Kreme parking lot. And again, he was like, I don't know why you're fooling with this. I don't know why I have to go with you to this open house. Like, this is a waste of a good day. And I was like, you know what? Forget you. You are a negative Nancy and I can't handle it anymore. I am going to be amazing at this. I'm already amazing at this. And so forget it. We're done. We broke up in the Krispy Kreme parking lot, sitting back to Georgia.
Wow.
So he called me and he was like, all right, so real estate's really important to you. I get it. What can I do to get back on your good side, basically? And I said, well, you got to get into real estate. You got to go to these conferences with me. You got to like help me with this. You're going to have to like be involved and really grab hold. So he went to a house conference with me, boot camp. And then he signed us up for apartment boot camp. And I closed 2 more deals. So I had my 14 deals in my first year that way. And he just, I think he fell in love with the apartments and the strategy and the formulas and the math and with apartments, it's a lot more black and white. With houses, there's a lot of gray. There's a lot of different things that we can change. With apartments, I mean, it's pretty much, you look at the numbers, they work, they don't work, and there's nothing we can do about it. Mm-hmm. So he really fell in love with that. And so because he was participating and I wanted to get into apartments also, I'd done 14 houses in like 9 months. Yeah, let's do apartments. Sounds good. So it wasn't just that I grew into apartments. It was that I personally, internally grew into apartments. And he proposed to get married a month before we closed on our deals, but we bought them as partners, not as a couple. Nice. I'm smart. But that's how we work that. So we have 3 complexes totaling 19 units. We have a triplex, we have a 5 unit, and then we have an 11 unit. And our 11 breaks down to a 4, a 6, and a house, all on the same parcel. Okay. So the 16 units that we have, they're pretty close together. They're almost the same. They just have different parcel IDs. And we have a management company that runs those, but our triplex, I self-manage it.
How's that going?
it's fun. I got a text message today that somebody had a clogged toilet, so I took a screenshot of it and sent it to my handyman. He'll meet with them, figure it out, send me a bill, and I'll be done with it.
Awesome. Love it.
It's a text message and checking the bank account to make sure everybody paid. You know what it is? And when you have rentals, you know, today's the 3rd, rent's due on the 5th. So if they pay rent, they feel like they need their toilet fixed.
And you've done that already, so why not? Everyone's happy, right?
Everything's fine. Go fix the toilet. You got to have some expenses.
Man, I could keep going on, Whitney, but we're definitely, I'm learning so much. We're having fun, but we're definitely dwelling into the quick rounds now. So these are going to be quick questions, quick answers. So first question, what makes Whitney Nicely unique? What is that differentiating factor that makes you different from the next girl or the next guy?
I think it's probably the way I was raised. I was raised by a woman who said, yeah, go and do it. Don't let anybody tell you you can't. And so I never realized that I had restrictions until the world started telling me that, you know, maybe I can't. Watch this. Mama says I can. So I think that's what makes me keep going.
Okay, awesome. Second question. What was the last book that you read? And what was the one nugget that you love from that book?
Gosh, I can't find it right now. It's green. It's by Doreen Virtue. And I've got the cards right now. Angels of Abundance or something like that. She is a Christian psychic. And she wrote a book. She did the cards here with her son, I think, but she wrote the book with her husband or something. And it's all the same motivational stuff that everybody's always saying, but it comes from a Christian psychic, which is a neat little twist on things. That was the last book I read. I actually have 3 books going on right now. I get a little distracted.
Awesome. So, I mean, you've got your land being rented, you got the homes, you got the triplex you're looking after, you got the apartment buildings. What do you do for fun? How do you blow some steam off?
On Sunday afternoon, we went hiking after church, and that was fun just to get out. And, you know, especially because right now everything moves so fast. And so if you can get out and leave your phone in the car and do something in nature, hiking, biking, just walking around, watching the river, doing something slow, it really helps your mind. And I have a great time with it. I would like to get into horseback riding also, because I used to do that when I was a kid and it was really fun. And I have some friends that are doing that now and they really enjoy it. And so I think that's what I'd like to do for fun now.
Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome. I got to tell my wife after church, maybe we should start doing that too. That's awesome. So I'm listening to this. I'm working out in the gym as a dual listener. I'm riding my bike or running. I'm like, wow, I like what Whitney's saying. I want to get to know Whitney. Where can people reach out to you? How can people, get in touch with you?
You can go to whitneynicely.com. I've got a ton of YouTube videos. I've got my own podcast if you want to hear more me. And I interview my husband. I interview my property manager on my podcast. It's fun. Or if you want to book a call with me, you can go to whitneynicely.com/schedule. There's a little video and a button to book a call, and we'll hop on the phone and see how I can help you. Awesome.
And I'm definitely going to put that in the show notes for our guests as well. So that'll be awesome. Whitney, I learned so much stuff. Had a ton of fun. Just trying to decipher everything you've taught me. And I'm sure our dual listeners feel the same way. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ola. It was fun.